Hello, World Wide Web. Welcome back to the Hanging with Web show right here on HWWS Web TV. I'm GW Pomichter. Now, do me a favor. Hit subscribe. And I've been watching a lot of YouTube lately.
Yes.
Right? So smash the bell.
Yes.
I don't even know what that means. I think it means get notified because every single day at 11 a.m. we have a new interview with an artist, author, filmmaker, musician, creative mind of some kind. Right here on the set of the Hanging with Web show. We are hanging out right now with Martin Pierro.
Yes, sir.
The author, publisher, owner, under average handicap golfer. He's a lot of things, right? At Cosmic Times, the organizer of PalmCon.
Yes.
Yeah, look at him. Organizers make that sound because this is like herding wet cats.
Yes.
Yeah, artistic, creative wet cats, which is
yes, sir.
worse.
All right.
Although we don't say anything bad about cats because it's the internet and we're pretty sure that it's owned by a cabal of cats.
Definitely run by them. For
yes,
sure.
it's definitely run by cats. So, Martin, thank you so much for
Thanks
hanging
for
out with us
having
today,
me,
man.
Thank you so much.
Wow, let's talk about what you've got going on. What are you?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've been at this for many years. We
used to ride dinosaurs to the convention.
Yes.
And
yes.
it was okay because there was only a small group of us.
Right, but back then, the stone tablets we would put the comics on.
That's right. Yeah.
It was a challenge to transport them, but no, I've been doing this for 11 years. 2009 was the first time we released a book, so I count that as the start of the business.
That's right. Remember those early days when you still had the glint of hope in your eye?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I'm not going to lie. There's been a few years lately. But yeah, I started in 2009. I just did some self-publishing stuff. Realized that the only way to make money at this were to scale things up, so I had to produce more books. So I just brought some more people on to create titles with us. And sure enough, the thing snowballed. It just kept growing and growing until 2014, or 13, one or the other, at New York Comic Con, and Diamond Comics approached us and said, we would like to distribute your product. And we went national, and it was just, for a couple of years, it was just crazy. We got books in comic shops all over the world. We were doing great, but there's always that you should plan for failure. Sometimes you should plan for success. Say success was the worst thing that ever happened to me.
True enough.
I
tell people all the time, this was a hobby. I went to my first writers conference.
Okay.
And I was looking for a way to stand out because I was the new guy.
Sure.
I had one book on the table. All these other guys had 50. And I was like, how am I going to, I said, I used to be a journalist. I was a newspaper reporter. I'm going to interview the other authors, and it was a writers conference. So I said, that way, because nobody gets any press. You know how it is. As a small press guy or
right.
an indie guy, you don't get any press.
No, you're
so I was like,
yeah.
I want to interview them to stand out. Was how I did it. By the end of that conference, I had people coming up to me saying, are you going to be at? Are you going to be at? Are you going to be at? 3 conventions and conferences later, I had a full-time job doing this, and I still managed to write once in a while, which is, so I get it. You have to plan for that unexpected.
Right.
I mean, yes, plan for failure. Plan that things won't go the way you plan. But you also have to plan for that what if moment. Because those what ifs, man, they don't come very often. But when they do,
right,
they can hit you hard.
And it did. It hit me hard. We were making lots of money, but a lot of money was going out, and I just didn't have the mechanisms in place to make it work. Mm-hmm. So here we are.
But here you are, but you're back at it.
I never really stopped, but for 2016, 2017, it was just a rough patch for me. We've come back fighting. We're using Kickstarter now. It's a good way. It's a good way to obviously to generate revenue, but it's a great way to market.
It's a wonderful way to generate a little revenue while you're generating a good fan base.
Yes, building from the ground up again is what we're doing with Kickstarter.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah. So what are you working on right now?
Well, we just wrapped our Kickstarter. I hope to have the books for this weekend, but I didn't realize it takes 2 weeks to get the funds from Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So we're picking them up on Monday for a project we did called From Blood.
Awesome.
We did the first chapter of it. And again, we can talk about failure. We initially pitched it as a graphic novel, and we had a really high goal, and I didn't hit it. It's devastating when you run a Kickstarter, you're not going to make it. So we decided to break the book into 3 chapters, which is what it originally was supposed to be, and went the single issue format, and we did phenomenal on our first one. So,
awesome.
You got to keep coming back off the ropes, man.
Yeah, I think, and a lot of young creators out there don't realize part of the creative process is not just creating your characters and your world and your getting the art done and things like that.
Sure.
Part of the creative process is being creative with how you're going to tell a story.
Oh, sure.
And whether it be a graphic novel format, individual issues, you have to get creative, because again, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you plan for failure. What am I going to do
Right.
if this doesn't work out? And then you plan for success.
Sure.
This is working out much better than I thought it would.
Exactly.
Coming from those days, those early days in 2009, 2010, okay, and having that early success. Now coming up now with crowdfunding and Kickstarter and things like that, it's a different world. So tell me about your transition into that. What was that like for you, looking at that? What was your initial thought of crowdfunding and Kickstarter? What were your initial? Because I know you probably had the same thoughts that I did, because we're of that generation that you kind of look at that and you went,
right.
Yeah.
Excuse me real quick. I should have had a drink first. Sorry about that. The same principle, like you were just saying. I felt like at first it was like, am I begging for handouts? I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
I never want to be that guy. So I remember I did a panel with my good friend Michael Kingston, who does the Headlock comic, and I referred to Kickstarter as hobo money. It's like you're like you're a hobo begging for money. And with your change cup, please fill this so I can make my comics. But over the years, I don't know how well you follow Ethan Van Sciver, he did this Indiegogo or whatever it was.
Yep.
And $800,000. And build a massive fan base. So it's a legitimate platform.
I was watching, it was a couple of years ago, 2016, I think, 2015,
Something,
2016, right? And we were following a bunch of different indie creators and small creators, and then the early days of kind of internet celebrity were happening. And I remember seeing some of our mainstream folks move into the internet. And I watched the Indiegogo campaign for the Alan Tudyk Con Man project.
Yes, okay.
And at that time, people would say crowdfunding, and I would hear GoFundMe and Indiegogo, Patreon, all these platforms, and I would just be like, come on, really?
Right.
It feels like you're standing there with
Ching,
a tin
ching,
cup,
ching,
right?
yeah.
And then I saw these two guys that I knew from mainstream Hollywood sitting on an Indiegogo platform,
I remember that,
saying, we're going to fund this show that I couldn't get to the network. And I'm thinking, well, then how are you going to distribute it? And how are you going to do all of this? And they did their explanation. And I was like, I'm curious to see how this works now that we have two people mainstream. And in 30 days, they did like $500,000.
Oh, sure.
And I was like, what is, that got my attention.
Right.
Because I thought, if they're doing it, if the guys who know how to get funding all over are doing it,
Yes.
then why aren't more indies making more money? And then I talked to local comic Travis Gibb, who
Oh yeah, of course.
Travis
broke down 4
is
dead
just
bodies.
a GoFundMe machine.
Yes, he is.
And I said to him, why GoFundMe? He said, well, I'm pre-selling the books. I'm building a fan base.
Right.
I'm able to do variant covers because when I reach these different goals. And he was explaining stretch goals to me, all these things, and I'm like, now it's starting to make sense to me, but it took a while to get there.
Yes.
And I'm sure that was your experience
Almost,
too.
and I will tell you, before we did this campaign for From Blood, I spoke with Travis Gibb. I spoke with Joel Rodriguez, some people I know who've done successful Kickstarters, and to try to figure out their methodology and what they did. And it does open my eyes to, it's a community it's almost like a whole social media community that just does Kickstarters. And it speaks to the comic book industry as a whole, where you hear a lot of people gloom and doom of the comic industry, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that it hasn't changed in 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and how it operates. So I think Kickstarters and social media and digital delivery and all this, the industry it's finding new footing, and it's the new frontier of where this industry is going.
The fastest evolving artists are these guys.
Yeah.
The indies in the alleys of conventions.
Because they have to be.
They have to be.
Yes.
And they evolve so quickly. And it takes the old timers like us a minute to go, why are you doing that?
Right.
And then all of a sudden, one of our ilk or somebody we know, or somebody over at Marvel or DC or somebody will do something, and we're like, why are they doing that? That's what our guys do.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you see, it does work, and it's amazing.
Yes.
It's a wonderful transit. I come from I went to school for journalism. I worked for the newspaper, for a weekly newspaper for 4 years. And when I came into this, I remember scoffing. I said, what am I going to do these interviews now? My son said, put them on YouTube, Dad. Why? Isn't that where entertainers go to die?
Yes.
Is what I thought.
Right. Exactly.
And the answer was no. That's where they go to be born these days. And I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I was from that, take your sizzle reel in and pray and write. But that's not it. That's really. So aside from Diamond Comics, best convention experience. Diamond Comics telling you I want to distribute you.
Yeah, that was my best part. Yeah.
Boom, guys. That's it. That's not completely it. I'm sure there's another one in his future, but for now, that's.
Well, I will say probably it's a different experience. I used to run a convention in Palm Beach County called PalmCon.
Yes.
And I might bring it back. I don't know. I'm toying with it. But the last one we did, I realized I'm going to invite the guest I want to meet. So at least if the show fails, I'll get to
squee fanboy a little bit, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite voice actors, are they celebrities, are they not? Was Michael Bell. He did cartoon voices for he was all kinds of things. He was Duke on G.I. Joe and whatnot. And I got to sit down and talk to him for a while, and that was really cool. I got to talk to Ike Eisenman. You're like, who's that? He was in Witch Mountain when I was a kid. I brought him to the show because my daughter loved Witch Mountain movies, and I wanted to meet him.
That's awesome.
Those kind of things they stand out as great moments in convention promoting, creating your own convention.
Now you've promoted and run your own convention.
Yes, PalmCon. We did it for 6 years.
And you've done the con circuit here
now.
now
I still do
forever
it.
and ever and ever, right?
Yeah. Talk about the grind.
Yeah. Guys, hashtag con life.
Yeah.
It is.
For sure.
It's all go, no quit, 24/7, even when you're not here, because you got to get ready for the next one.
I'm already planning the next one. Yeah.
See?
Next weekend I'm somewhere. So.
Yeah. So, most challenging moment.
Most challenging moment.
Well, I'd love for these guys out on YouTube to understand that when you walk in the door and you put your wristband on or your lanyard, so much has happened here before you got here.
Oh yeah. It was poor planning on my part. Again, we were going to do New York. The second year I did New York Comic Con. I was like, you know what? Flying up there, shipping all the stuff up, it's expensive. It takes money. We're going to rent a van and drive up. Oh well, and I'm like, oh, it's 18 hours. I can do that in a day. You know what driving for 18 hours feels like. It was exhausting. And we get there.
Everything here, by the way, folds up and goes in my van. So yeah, that's
you know what it is.
yes.
Yeah. We get to New York we get to New York City and did not realize it's $50 a day to park in the city. So I ended up spending more doing it that way than if I just flew and went up. So that was a hard lesson I had to learn. And it was so tiring and so exhausting. And we were going to save money. We were going to stay in Jersey instead of New York and then going through the tunnel every day. It was planned. I get planned for everything.
That was the cheapest $5,000.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
that he didn't know he was going to spend.
Money,
That's right. He was saving money. We tease, because on the internet we know that. And it's, guys, I don't pick on gender or anything else, but there is a set of society that sees a 70% off sale and doesn't realize that means 30% on.
Right, okay.
That's us when we're planning to travel.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I'm going to rent this and I'm going to do this and it's just going to cost me gas, and you don't realize we're putting a gas in a truck that you rented is.
Right. I don't drive a truck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So by the time you're done, you're like, well, didn't I hustle the system?
Yeah, I sure worked around it. Right, yeah.
So, I love this. She's feeding us questions. Apparently, she doesn't like it when we're having fun.
Okay.
Back on most topic. Popular comic at Cosmic Times. Oh, okay. Or I like that one better. The most surprising takeoff.
It would be the first book we distributed nationally was Giant Robot Warrior Maintenance Crew.
All right, we're going to do that slowly. Giant Robot Warrior Maintenance Crew.
The pitch is it's a workplace comedy set inside the belly of a giant robot, and it's The Office meets Voltron.
It's The Office meets
Voltron. Yes.
Because
why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was
so this is what happens when creative people sit down. Don't be afraid if they're talking about, why would we do this? Only be afraid when you hear the words, why not? Because that means something's coming.
There you go. Yeah. It was it was the first thing I put out there, so I'm like, this is not going to hit. And it, again, success. It took off right out of the gate. People just related to this concept. The title pitches the book. Giant Robot Warrior Maintenance Crew. What's it about? Giant Robot Warrior Maintenance Crew. And it was a huge hit for us. So right out of the gate we were doing well. And then we had other books that then came along that we thought would do well, like Deep Space Tragedy about a teenage robot rock band. That just sounds cool. So that did well. So we've been very fortunate with a lot of our titles.
What am I looking at down here?
Well, this is just a couple things. I just grabbed some stuff
We've
on
got
the table.
some things. Okay, so I'm gonna go down the list here real quick.
I didn't bring.
She's got a card in her hand that she knows is a threatening card. It means we're supposed to shut up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And what we have to do is ignore her as long as we can. It's
All
part
right.
of the game.
All right,
So,
I like this.
Yurushi.
Yurushi, yeah,
Okay,
I brought that.
Tell me about Yurushi.
Yurushi is it's a samurai love story. It's called The Story of Love, Loss, and Forgiveness. It was created by my creative director Zach Bassett, who eventually moved to Texas. But it's all done in watercolors. You can see the cover is all watercolors.
Really?
And each panel was like its individual watercolor painting.
Wow!
And it's a great story. It's a sad story.
Who's the artist for this?
Zach Bassett. He's the artist and the writer of it. He's my creative director.
Both.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So here we go. Deep Space Tragedy. This we talked about a little bit. This is a teenage robot rock band.
On the run. Yes.
Wow.
Band on the run, but they're robots.
That's cool.
Yes.
Okay. Decisions. Okay. What do we got?
Decisions. The Face of the Stranger. These were. It's an experimental book. I write these. I wrote this one. Actually, co-wrote this one with Zach.
Okay.
There's slice of life stories with a little metaphysical things worked in. When I use this book if I have something I want to say.
Okay.
That's a little bigger than just heroes or villains or whatever.
Yeah.
I'll put it in this series. And this one is about a guy who had something horrible happen to him when he was a youth. And as we get older, we now have adult eyes, and he's still looking at it from a child's eyes. So these two metaphysical beings take him back in time and show him this is what really happened to you.
Perspective.
Now you can start to heal.
Perspective.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's heavy stuff.
That's wow.
That's our serious book.
And we that's one of the things we like to tell our audience, especially from a Comic-Con setting, is that comics are not always. It's not always men in tights. It's not always good guy wins the day. There's some serious literature in comics today.
Well, I believe comics are just like books or movies or television programs. There's all different types.
That's right. You can have some fun with it.
Yep.
Rock band on the run. Robot rock band on the run.
Exactly.
Or you can get heady and you can dive deep into the human condition, and that's what storytellers do, right?
Yep.
I mean, and whether it's 40 pages or it's 400 pages.
Sure.
And I argue, as a guy who writes the 400-page version, I argue that the 40-page version in pictures is harder to do.
I come from a film background, and learning how to write comics as opposed to a film or television script, totally different animal.
When you're doing, because I just did my first book in screenplay format.
Okay.
And I was watching a friend of mine who does comic scripts, and I was looking at my script and his comic script, and I was thinking, I never worried. When I was at 78, 79 pages, and I wasn't there yet, I was like, that's good. It's going to make a lot of room for the editors to cut and the producers to play and the director.
Sure.
But he was trying to concise things into picture frames, and I thought, that looks hard.
It was a challenge. It was a challenge.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. That's the shut up card. She's wiggling it now. That has significant meaning, I suppose. We have to say thank you to our partners and friends. I want to say thank you to Famous Faces and Funnies, Jay Bauer Art, Josh Bauer for all the paintings on the set.
Josh Bauer is great. Yeah.
Josh is awesome.
Yeah.
Man. He's going to be here tomorrow live painting from the set.
He used to come to PalmCon. He's a great artist.
Awesome,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, by all means. Please brag about our folks, because we love you, Josh. Space Coast Comics and Space Coast Comic-Con, Hearts Helping Others of Central Florida. Those are families helping other families right here in Central Florida. Just helping them, whether it's with Christmas gifts for the kids or whatever. They're a great organization. Brevard Film and Talent, who has continuously stretched and pushed me to become a filmmaker instead of a writer.
Okay.
Because when I started the show, I was a newspaper writer. You sit at your keyboard a lot. Now I had to learn how to use a camera and a soundboard and everything else. And those are the guys that helped me do it. Mommy and G Creations, that's my daughter and my granddaughter. They do our merchandising for us. They're hanging with Web Show mugs and T-shirts and teddy bears and those things. They're fantastic people. NSC Live TV, these guys we just met, these guys are fantastic. They're taking the live auction markets for these comic book shops and stuff and kind of collecting them together and creating a place where you can just go.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of that on Facebook and stuff. Yeah.
Whatever you're looking for, these guys are pumping it out there for you. And of course, our new friends at Entertainment Inc., Ink Fusion Magazine, for letting Harry come out and hang out with us.
There you go.
Because he was over there. You guys can purchase Harry for $40. If you weren't here at Central Florida Comic-Con, you probably can't, because he'll sell, because there was 2 people that stopped at the booth already today and said, where did you get the Harry? And I had to tell him I didn't. It's not really mine. I borrowed it. But thank you to that. We've been hanging out here at Central Florida Comic-Con with Martin Pierro, the author, publisher, and owner at Cosmic Times. Once organizer of PalmCon. He's on the edge now. Okay, I gotta ask you one more question.
Okay.
One more question.
Sure.
We talked a little bit about planning for success, planning for failure, riding that line as a creator. This is your round 2.
Pretty much, yep.
The biggest lesson learned from round 1 that's going to help you in round 2.
Again, it goes back to what we said before. It's like the New York trip. Looking a little further ahead than just what's gonna meet my immediate needs, and that was what I had been doing for so long, and that's where I was short-sightedness. You have to look with everything 1, 2, 3 years in the future. Try to plan for that. Try to put things in place. And of course, I now have an assistant, or actually a co-worker. I call her my partner, Heidi Hess. I brought her on board. She keeps a lot of stuff organized. Sometimes you can do things by yourself. Sometimes you need help.
I don't exist without Dina and Sage and Steven and Cosplay Michael over on that side of the camera.
You gotta have somebody behind you.
I don't exist without them. They make it all happen for real. So great advice. We have to go, guys. She's shaking the card. She's angry with me. So I'm going to say goodbye. Subscribe, log on, tune in, and see who we're hanging with next. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Sorry about coughing at the beginning there. Oh,
no.